The acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has expressed confidence in the judiciary's upholding of the Constitution, despite what he says have been attacks on judges. The acting Chief Justice says despite those storms, the judiciary is capable of being the guardian of our Constitution. He was presenting the annual report for the judiciary earlier. Joined now by the legal expert Romeo Nthambeleni. Romeo, good evening to you. I do appreciate the time. The acting Chief Justice says there have been attacks on judges. I mean, he's not wrong and he's not joking. There have been very severe attacks on judges quite recently.
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon, Stephen, and the viewers. It is true what the acting Chief Justice is saying, and basically that report that you have referred to was looking at the legacy of the former Chief Justice Mogoeng.
There's an Afrobarometer survey that shows that less than half of the population trust judges. I mean, does this show that these continued attacks on courts are actually having an impact? We also come from a history, I must just say, where the courts were upholding an immoral system, which means, you know, we're starting from a very low base because of our past.
Yeah, you know, Steve, you're quite correct, and I know that you've been around long enough to understand the judiciary and the challenges that it has been facing at the present juncture. And as you are actually saying that the attacks on the judiciary does not help in public confidence as well in relation to the survey that you have actually referred to. So the constant attack on the judiciary actually lowers the morale of the public in the trust of the judiciary system and how it's supposed to deliver its function under Chapter 8 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Steve.
When we look at the annual report, and obviously praise for the former Chief Justice, I keep wanting to say outgoing, but he is now the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng. I mean, this happened during his time. He had to defend the judiciary, and it shows that whoever takes over is going to have to defend the judiciary too. Yeah,
as well, you're right. You're quite correct to say that the former Chief Justice was always on the defensive of the judiciary. What is important is to look at the application of the legislative framework in the respect of the Constitution, the Superior Courts Act of 2013, and norms and standards for the performance of judicial officers and judicial functions, as well as the Judicial Services Commissions Act. And we know what was happening in that space, and the disclosure of the interest of judges as well in terms of the registrar and the remuneration of judges and the condition of employment and its regulation as well. So that is very much important, as well as the judicial training of judicial officers. So looking at that comprehensive framework and the work that was done by the former Chief Justice, you can commend the good work that was started. That should continue with the new incoming Chief Justice.
Are the systems getting better for judges? I've seen some people say they're actually now not being paid enough because they haven't had an increase in some time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you speak to many judges, they will tell you that being a judge is a thankless job. It's a job where you are overworked and underpaid. So I think it has been some times, and I think the new incoming Chief Justice will start to look at that actually going forward as to how those issues pertaining to salaries and remuneration of judges should be re-looked at going forward.
I mean, the risk is if we don't fix that, we're not going to have good people coming forward to be judges.
Absolutely, because you know that most judges are taken from ranks of senior attorneys and senior advocates as well that are actually doing much more well and better in practice. And it has been said by practitioners that taking a position as a judge is an act of insolvency, basically looking at the remuneration which you actually earn as a judge.
You do get paid for the rest of your life, but I realize that doesn't help you in the short term.
No.
I suspect, Romeo, and I want to ask you this, we may need judges more than ever next year. There are going to be contentious cases coming. There'll be political cases, but there's also going to be cases around mandatory vaccinations. This is going to be a big test for the judiciary and for the way the judiciary is trusted.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. You are quite correct. We can see the issue of mandatory vaccinations and also the government wanting to actually enforce it to try and bring the numbers down. And it's being done in the many employment sectors, and there's a huge resistance in relating to that, basing it on the protection that is enshrined in the Constitution relating to the protection of bodily integrity of persons. So you are quite correct that next year will be a year of enormous litigation relating to those mandatory vaccinations that are currently being debated by government.
Romeo Nthambeleni, thanks very much indeed. Legal analyst, advocate, I do appreciate the time, sir.